Hi, everybody. Hopefully you're tuning in after watching the first couple videos with this course on teaming and your vision. So the last where we left off was defining a group versus a team, as well as understanding that three things are always happening in any organization, really with any team, and that is task, process, and relationship. And where we don't spend a whole lot of time or not enough time is in that relationship building. And as soft skill as that sounds, many of you on here as leaders and team coaches or just having been on teams know how crucial relationship is. Trust, vulnerability, innovation. Those types of things are very important in teaming and building a team, whether that's a product-based team, a service-based team, nonprofit, or just even with any church or organization. And relationship is where we should really be focusing. So with that in mind, this part of the course is going to go over how we develop as people on teams, and hopefully it provides you with some insight. And so, I want you to imagine, maybe you have a team right now, or just take a group of people from your workplace or organization and put them in a room and, label them a group trying to become a team, right? And that's often how that happens, whether it's cross-functional or multifunctional. People with the right talents get called to be on a team together. And so it doesn't stop there. It actually starts there. That's where the hard work starts. And so when we look at teams, we actually look at Bruce Tuckman's development sequence in small groups and what we end up calling the team development wheel. And here's how, across the spectrum, no matter how big, how small, how old, how wise, how young, how energetic, how modern, doesn't matter. When we put people together, here's how teams develop in these 4 stages. This video will go over the first 2 and we'll end with storming, and then the next video will go into norming and performing. Again, this is a brief overview of teaming. There's plenty on teams and plenty of things you can read and watch. Hopefully this gives you a quick overview to quickly implement with your team. So when we bring that group together, that new group, and maybe they've known each other in work situations, but more or less we're bringing a group of people together that have various skills and talents that need to work together to develop a product, implement a plan, implement your vision. And so when we first put them all together, what you'll notice, maybe in the first couple meetings, if you meet once a month, once a week, this is really the who are we stage. And we're very polite. When we get everybody around, there's rarely any unpolitical correctness, whether that's, just basically from the business perspective. No one's really pushing or challenging or anything like that. They're politeful, they're watchful, they may even be guarded, right? Nobody's giving any of their great secrets or any great ideas out. Oftentimes, maybe as a coach, you have to feel like you're kind of pulling people to get a little bit more comfortable and share ideas. And communication is tentative. And so, what we witness when we form that first team is really only skin deep. And so for many of you on this course who have implemented teams before, recognize this as being kind of step one. And this can last anywhere from a couple of weeks to a couple of months. Really, the speed at which a team goes through this cycle is based on how frequent they meet. So if you're on a nonprofit board and you meet once a month, once a quarter, you could stay informing forever. You also, as you speed up that, or you want to get through the team cycle to get to high performance, you may want to meet more often. So even as a nonprofit board, if you really want to get innovation and creativity and challenge your board, it would be speeding up the process, speeding up the frequency in which they meet, and same with your business team as well. It's important to note, you may look at this and go, wow, everybody's polite, everybody's, being nice to one another. Isn't this a great place to stop? And oftentimes, a lot of team coaches get stuck or even tricked into remaining informing. See, aren't we doing well? We're all polite, we're all doing this, but you haven't really actually reached high performance, and you haven't reached innovation and creativity, which is what you're trying to get out of this team of talented people. And so oftentimes forming may be a nice stage, but it's not the stage that we need to stay in forever. The other thing you want to start to think about as you look at this stage, and we talk about it here and how to lead during this time of your team, is really about starting to implement some of the boundaries and responsibilities and even structure to how this team's going to operate. We don't go into it too much in this course, but I highly recommend developing a team charter, which outlines what their goal is, what their objectives are, what's their authority level, how do they make decisions, how do they report to one another, how do they solve conflict, how do they meet, what's the agenda structure, when do they meet, that sort of thing. So a charter will outline a lot of that, and then you can put in processes and protocols depending on how structured you want to make it. At this point in the team, when everybody's so polite, communication is tentative, they're willing to just go along, this is the time you start to put in those structures and those processes. Because when you get into conflict and storming, which you will get into with teaming on various levels, you want to be able to revert back to those processes and protocols that they mutually agreed upon, right? So this, again, if we're a team, it's not about the leader dictating what's going to happen. It's about the team forming their charter, forming their way of working together, and agreeing to it, and they'll agree to it more readily in the forming stage when they first meet. You know, they don't want to tick anybody off. They don't want to be the black sheep of the team, so everybody goes along with it. That's your key as a coach to implement some of the boundaries and structures that you will have to go back to. You know, when people start to show up late for meetings, when meetings run over time, or nobody shows up with an agenda, or you're switching up meeting roles and somebody else has to facilitate, it's good to have an agreed upon way of doing that, processes way in advance. So when you are leading during this time and you have that team that's just formed, you're really a teacher, right? And I want you to also think of maybe the allegory of baseball when you think of a team. And really we're at the T-ball level. When the group first starts, we're all getting to know one another. We're understanding what the objectives are, what the goals are, really where we have boundaries, and not just boundaries on personalities, but you know, what's in scope, what's out of scope. And so this is a great time as a T-ball teacher to, you know, teach them how to swing, put the ball on the tee, teach them how to catch, but do it from your team perspective, right? So you're implementing the processes, protocols, saying we show up on time, teaching them this is how we function as a team and how we come together as a team. You clarify those structures and responsibilities, you provide that clear direction and purpose and tasks, and you really support that relationship growth. So as you're going through this, does that resonate with you? Have you seen that when you start to put your team together? Can you kind of put a finger on that and go, absolutely, I've seen that happen with many of the teams I've pulled together? Invariably, a group of people with diverse talents and diverse personalities and perspectives coming together and sitting together more frequently, right? So to get them out of forming, you want to put them together more often. What's going to start to happen? We're going to start to get to what Tuckman called the storming phase. And this is when the commitment tends to be towards subgroups. We see cliques and niches. You know, like I said earlier in one of the videos for the course, you know, you might be trying to solve a conflict, or might be on a base camp team meeting, and somebody's sending you a text on the side about the other person in the base camp. So there's all these cliques and niches, and people are in subgroups and have their own inside jokes, and we're really not functioning as a team. They may accept leadership or find ways to evade it. One of the biggest things that we see in teaming, as well as just as a leader, whether you're talking to the public, whether you're working with your people, one of the biggest keywords you want to listen to is "I'm confused." Most people aren't confused. Here's the punchline. Most people aren't confused. They use confusion as a defense mechanism, or as a way to pivot and kind of parlay your statement. So, you know, Matt, I want you to facilitate the next team meeting. I don't even know how to do that. You know, I get so confused about who facilitates, who takes notes. Those are great keywords for you to key in on and say, okay, the person I don't think is really, they're trying to evade taking on a leadership role, which you need them to do as you build your team. The team will start to find that they start to feel pressure to perform, confusion, like I said before. And it's all about control, especially if you're in self-directed teams and there really is, no leader, because you all should be kind of co-equals, kind of that Camelot round table scenario, and you're the coach, which you're coaching, right? So the coach isn't on the field batting the ball or catching the ball. The coach is on the sidelines, and that's really where you as a coach for a team need to be. And so because of that, because they're not getting direct, the boss tells us, basically it's when Steve Jobs threw all the elements of the iPad on the table and created various guerrilla teams to figure out how to pull it all together. And that's what he did. He just kind of said, you're the smartest. We need you to solve how to build an iPad. That's kind of what you're doing. And so there's really no control in that. You have to trust one another. No one is actually giving you complete direction as a boss, but more an encouragement. And so that can be very confusing for many people. And the stress grows, and you can feel that. So how do you lead during this time? Again, go back to that metaphor, moving from teacher, because now you've already laid the groundwork in forming, you're moving to coach. You're moving to I'm on the sidelines and I'm coaching you to resolve conflict, have a better communication plan, figure out how we want to equitably make decisions, and how do we manage our time. One of the biggest enemies of teams, and really enemies, teams is just a means to an end, and the end is to create superior products and services. And one of the biggest hindrances in that is the poor behavior of people. And so that's where you as a coach start to call out that poor behavior. How are you going to resolve conflict? How are you going to delegate tasks equitably? It's also important as a coach to allow that group to struggle and grow. Let them be adults. Let them take control when they need to. Let a team leader rise to the challenge. It's also important as a coach to reinforce the quick wins and accomplishments. Here's what we did really well. Hey guys, we passed the agenda, we passed the minutes and notes. We've got people that have kind of chosen roles to play. That's huge. We didn't do that last time. We argued last time. And so it's very important to look at where can I find quick wins? Where can I find accomplishments to point out? Praise is powerful. And then as a coach, you're constantly going back to those charters and processes and protocols to remind them of those tasks and processes. That's why we made those in the forming stage when everybody was agreeable, right? Because now everybody's butting heads. And if you ever tried to pass anything like here's our team standards or rules or principles, that wouldn't have happened. And so now is the time when you can lean into the things you agreed upon in the beginning. So when we look at the storming part of teaming, we like to call it the muck in the middle. And it really is. And if you can think of any good movie, Remember the Titans or Miracle with Kurt Russell, is always great movies to go to. There's key moments in those movies where it is the muck in the middle. That's how they wrote the Hollywood movie. They know what plays to the crowd. And so oftentimes what we see is, forming over here, we get into this well of conflict and storming. We have to dig ourselves out. And here's the unfortunate part. And again, some of my veteran coaches may be watching this course. How does it actually happen? Do we just kind of go in and then we find the thing that really pulls us together and we pull out? Probably not. Oftentimes, we want it to go like this, and it really looks like that. We have 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, and we go back and forth trying to move our team through storming. Here's the key. The muck happens, and the muck occurs when the vision is forgotten. Why are we here and where are we going? When the decisions actually get tough. So when we don't have to agree on agendas and protocols and processes, we have to decide, are we using this for the product or that for the product? And how do we equitably make that decision? And hopefully through a consensus format. We're not As a team, we don't believe in voting because voting creates winners and losers. That's not how we operate as a team. We shouldn't. We should be finding at most every single opportunity to make a consensus, something that I may not agree with, but I can live with. When you think about consensus, you talk about consensus with your team, right? It means everybody is saying, I agree with this. It means there's no voting. Everybody puts their thumbs up. I agree with this. And the key to consensus is it's not my first choice. It's not something that I would have gone with, but I can live with it. And people start to make those sacrifices for the team. But when the muck happens, that's when the decisions get tough and how we want to make those decisions. It's also when role and structures get confusing, right? So who is leading us? Who's the team leader? Who is the sponsor? Sometimes you're going to get a call that says, I want you to step in here and discipline this person or call them out. And you as a coach of a team have to say, that's not my role here. My role is to be a sponsor. My role is to break down barriers, cut red tape, move the project forward. But you have to solve your own problems. And so the roles and structures get confusing. People don't like that. People don't like chaos. People don't like confusion. They want a clear answer. And then finally, the pain starts to be felt. And as you get more and more together, as you increase the frequency, because again, you want conflict, you want storming. Storming is what kind of in the bastion of storming and then the fire is where your team actually forms and becomes a stronger high performance team. But the pain has to be felt. We don't change until pain is administered. If you think about that, when do you ever change for the sake of change? Probably not often. You change when you make big life changes, big work changes. It's when the pain starts to be felt. And so in order for our team to move from just, this kind of group of people that meet together to high performance work team, pain has to be administered and we have to move our way through storming. So on the next video, I will talk to you about how the heck do I get my team out of storming. Thanks again for joining me. All right. If you are